A great starting point for finding things in the night sky is the Big Dipper. It's always visible in the northern hemisphere any time of the year. From there, you can find the Little Dipper and the North Star Polaris. And this time of year, you can follow the curve of the Big Dipper's handle and it will lead you to the big bright star Arcturus. You can remember that by remembering the arc of the Big Dipper arcs to Arcturus.
Once you arc to Arcturus, you can find the big star Spica, just to the southwest of Arcturus. Spica is in the constellation Virgo that contains a lot of galaxies to be found in our scope. Plus, this month and the next, we will find the planet Mars playing around Spica. Every night this month, Mars will be getting closer and closer to Spica, approaching Spica from the west. Next month, Mars will pass right by Spica. Hey Herc, did you know that the Big Dipper and the Little Dipper are not constellations? The Big Dipper is part of Ursa Major, the Big Bear, and the Little Dipper is part of Ursa Minor, the Little Bear.
Yeah, they're called asterisms.
Let's see what we can find around the Big Dipper in the scope tonight.
Okay. Let's Explore Astronomy is sponsored in part by This month, we are going to take a look at two asterisms, the Big and Little Dipper. The Big Dipper is easy to find. Just look north. It is probably the most recognizable thing in the night sky. The two stars in the bowl of the Big Dipper point to the North Star Polaris. Polaris is the last star in the handle of the Little Dipper and is almost exactly straight up in the sky from the North Pole. Thus, as the Earth rotates, it appears that all the stars rotate around Polaris. The Big Dipper can be seen all year in the northern hemisphere. So, as the Earth rotates, the dippers appear sometimes up, sometimes upside down, sometimes on their handle, and sometimes on their bowl.
The Big Dipper is only part of the constellation Ursa Major. Ursa Major is the Big Bear. Because the Big Dipper is so easy to see, there are many stories about it from ancient times. The Greeks even had several stories about it. The most famous is that Ursa Major is Callisto. Callisto was a beautiful girl and Zeus fell in love with her. They had a son named Arcus. This really made Hera mad, so she turned Callisto into a bear. One day, Arcus was out hunting and came across Callisto, but he did not know her as his mother. Just before Arcus threw his spear at Callisto, Zeus saved the day, grabbing the both of them and putting them in the night sky as Ursa Major and Ursa Minor. In other stories, Ursa Minor is Ida, one of Zeus's nurses, and another story says that the stars are the daughter of Atlas who guard the temple of Hera. The Hindus say that the Big Dipper is of the seven sages. Some Native American stories say that the bowl of the Big Dipper is a bear and the three stars in the handle are the warriors chasing it. The Romans said that Ursa Minor was a wagon being pulled by an oxen. The Chinese say it was the emperor's chariot. These are just a few of the many stories associated with what today we call the two dippers.
We have told you how you can use the Big Dipper to find other objects in the night sky. Other episodes of Let's Explore Astronomy go into more depth on it. Also, ancient mariners sailing the seas used the dippers and the North Star to find their way across the oceans. An episode of Time Slip will tell you about the fascinating story of finding your way by the stars. But the Big Dipper and Ursa Major is not just useful in a navigation aid, it is also a great place to aim your scope. Probably the most popular object to find in Ursa Major is M81. M81 is easy to find in any scope. It is a large spiral galaxy, about 11.8 million light-years from Earth. M81 is a lot like our Milky Way galaxy, so by looking at M81, it is a lot like you would see if you could travel outside the Milky Way and look back. Only a half degree away from M81 lays M82, another spiral galaxy. M82 is known as the cigar galaxy because it is long and narrow. It is believed that the elongated shape is due to M81's gravity tugging at it. Stars forming in M82 are doing so at a rate 10 times faster than they do in the Milky Way. M101 is the pinwheel galaxy. We see it face on. It is 170,000 light-years across, making it 70% larger than the Milky Way. 5 companion galaxies orbit around it. 2 more galaxies of around 10 magnitude can be found here, M108 and M109. Another Messier object found in Ursa Major is the Owl Nebula, M97. It is a bright planetary nebula whose shape resembles an owl's head. It was formed by an exploding star about 6,000 years ago. Now, let's take a look at the southern hemisphere. Next to the constellation Centaurus, which we told you about last month, you will find the constellation Crux. Crux is also known as the Southern Cross. Crux is the smallest of all 88 constellations. Like the Dippers are always visible to most of the northern hemisphere, Crux is always visible to most of the southern hemisphere, as it appears to revolve around the pole, in this case, the South Pole. Although there is no South Star like Polaris in the north, Crux is often used like the Big Dipper as a pointer to the South Pole. Because it is so far south, it is not visible in the northern hemisphere above 20 degrees north.
Like Ursa Major in the north, Crux also had many stories related to the different cultures. The European explorers associated with the Cross of Christ. Aboriginal cultures in Australia said it was the head of an emu. Other Aboriginal stories say it is Marabuka. Marabuka is a spirit ancestor who watches down from the heavens to watch over the tribes of southeastern Australia. In New Zealand, they say it is an anchor. In Tonga, say it is a duck flying south with one wing hurt after hunters threw stones at it. The Incas in Peru said it was the Chicana. The Chicana is a famous symbol with 4 corners, and each corner has 3 steps. There's a hole at the center that symbolizes the capital Cusco. Each of the 4 points has a mystical meaning for the Incas. The constellation Crux was important to the Incas and represented the Chicana in the sky. Today, both the flags in Australia and New Zealand bear the Crux, which is known as the Southern Cross.
One of the most prominent objects in Crux is the Coal-Stack Nebula. It is visible with the naked eye. It lays only 600 light-years away from Earth. It appears as a dark patch in the Milky Way. It is a cloud of dust that obscures the light of the stars beyond it. NGC 4755 is the Jewel Box, or Kappa Cruxix cluster. It is an open star cluster. You can see it with the naked eye, and it appears as a large star, but with binoculars or a scope, you can make out the cluster. About half of the stars in the cluster are red, blue, yellow, and white supergiants. They are very young stars, at only about 14 million years old. Now, let's see what planets are visible this month.
Mercury will be in the evening sky the first week of June. Then it will disappear until the end of the month and reappear in the morning sky.
Venus will be in the morning sky in Taurus. On June 22nd, Venus will pass within 6 degrees of the Pleiades.
Mars will be visible before midnight in Virgo. You can find it just northwest of Spica.
Jupiter is in Gemini, invisible only just around sunset.
Saturn is visible most of the night until early morning hours in Libra.
Uranus is in Pisces, invisible in the early morning hours.
Neptune is in Aquarius, invisible in the early morning hours.
Full moon is June 13th, and new moon is June 27th. So, Velocity, we know that if we find the North Star Polaris, we are looking north, right?
Yes.
At the North Pole, Polaris is straight up, right?
Of course.
So that means if you are standing at the North Pole, south is directly below your feet.
True.
So which way is east and which is west?
That's easy. It's, oh, I know. The east is where the sun rises and the west where it sets.
Nice try, But this month is the summer solstice, so the sun never sets at the North Pole. What about at the South Pole? The sun never comes up this time of year.
You're trying to trick me. There is no east or west? Or maybe. Ugh! You and your stupid questions!
That is gonna bug her for days. Until next time, happy stargazing, everybody. Check out our other episodes in the Let's Explore Astronomy series at www.tedcookproductions.com/LEA.
You will find all kinds of cool astronomy topics there.
Hey, give a shout out to our sponsors, without whom we would not be here. Visit their websites and partake of their services and products. A big thank you to the Yukon Department of Tourism and Culture and Westmark Hotels, Westmark Whitehorse.